Flash. Ah, savior of the universe. Do, 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 do. Yeah. Welcome to Babbling Zoom, where the narrative matters. And finally actually gonna continue on with the DC stuff. I know it's been a while. So I'm gonna see how fast I can get through this. Because I hate doing long videos, but whatever. It usually ends up happening. Um, I was first introduced to Flash. Honestly, I knew about Flash even back in I think it's like the Garrett, no, the Barry Allen live action 80s show. I think I watched like one or two episodes when I was younger, and I was like, all right, it's okay. But back then I wasn't really much into the big live action stuff. I watched a few of the old 60s Batmans, cheesy as they were. Uh, and then there was a few other things popping up here and there at that time. Um, like the 80s stuff. And I was like, all right, whatever. It's good. Um, but I really started liking it once the animated series started popping up. I think it really was the Batman animated series really kind of just cemented the DC universe for me. I mean, yes, the Tim Burton ones did as well, but the cartoons kind of just really open up a whole wealth of storytelling. Which is where I got into watching eventually the Justice League animated series. Now, with the Flash, everyone knows the Barry Allen version of Flash. And essentially, when the animated series came out, they sidestep two characters. They sidestep Barry Allen and what's his name? The Green Lantern one. Um, blanking. To introduce two other characters. So in this series, we got Wally West, which is fine because, as some experts online has already said, Wally is pretty much Barry. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing. They just changed names, but roles are kind of the same. Um, but in a way, it took two shows or two episodes to kind of cement who really Barry is. I've said it before in the other two video or the earlier video of this, where Barry is really a social worker. There was this one great episode where um, Barry, Batman, and I can't remember the name of the other character. Um, huh? Yeah, I can't remember the name of the other character. Is going around trying to figure out what the Rogues Gallery is doing. Barry's group of characters that always are trying to uh, mess with Barry or mess with Flash. Again, this is Wally. Um, and one of the funniest moments happened when they walk into this bar, see Trickster drinking at the table, and everyone kind of tries their approach to intimidating the Trickster to out what's going on, right? Batman does his basic, I'm going to threaten you. I can't remember what the name of this guy was. He does the exact same thing, right? Again, it's the threat, bigger threat. And then Flash just sits down. And essentially it's hey, how you doing? You off your meds again? He's like, yeah. He's like, I told you that's a bad idea. I know. So what's everyone doing? The guys left me here because they thought I was crazy. They thought I was in the way. I was like, that doesn't sound good. So what are they doing now? Where are they? It's like, they'll probably get mad if I tell you. It's like, yeah, I know. They're at the Flash Museum. It's like, cool. Thanks. right? And then the best exchange after that is this perfect moment. Flash turns to him, says a thanks. It's like, dude, when you're done, turn yourself in. The trickster turns around and says, "You got me again, Flash." And it's implied that, yeah, he just turned himself in at the end. You know, he became the social worker. He sat there and then made sure everything was good. The second version of that that got me was an episode where they saw their multiverse characters. They entered into a multiverse where they found that everyone became a little more authoritarian. Um, and you had a moment where the altered versions of the superheroes locked up our Justice League. Being locked up, Batman tells Wally, Flash, to vibrate yourself to the point where your heart stops. He does that. The alternate version of Batman freaks out, panics, runs over to the cell, opens the door and makes sure he's still alive. Barry socks him, and then goes back and frees Bruce. Why did that work? And I'm sorry I'm spoiling everything for you, but in this universe, Flash died, right? Something Batman figured out really early on. Why is Barry important? Because in a way, he's kind of a heart. He's the heart of the group, right? And they're a group of people who are very stoic. Um, I'd say stoic and tacticians and all these things. You have one character who's a little more grounded, right? Barry, in a way, is kind of like the linchpin of the group. If you think about it that way, right? In a way, everyone has aspects of each other. I think that's why this group is so interesting. Um, think about it like this: Barry has the same heart as Superman. Barry has the same mind, not detective mind, but Barry has the same background as Batman, both losing their parents, right? One in prison, but essentially losing their parents. Uh, this is kind of their connections. Um, why Superman and Batman works together? They're both detectives. One is more of a police detective. The other one is more reporter, but both detectives, always trying to find the truth. Why does Wonder Woman and Batman work? They're both tacticians. They both understand war. Same as Green Lantern. What are you? I'm thinking John Stewart, which is wrong. Oh, spell Greenwell. Hal Jordan, of all things. Hal Jordan. All right. Hal Jordan and Hal Jordan and Diana, uh, both are military people, right? Diana and Aquaman. Well, I'm blocking on names. Whatever. They're both outsiders, right? They're both immigrants to this world. Although, no, I think he grew up in this world, but he understands the family, you know, family immigrant thing. So that's it. What should Flash bring to this story? What if you recontextualize Flash, not as the god, but as a person, as a responder, right? We're talking about a person who, because of his background, is in forensics, right? He is an officer. He works for the police. Um, but as opposed to, he works in the back, um, finding the evidence, proving people's innocence, proving that um, people are either innocent or guilty, trying to find the truth, right? Share a lot with that and Batman too. Um, the foster care angle. In multiple versions, I think he ends up either. I think mostly he gets with a police family. I know in the live action one, the Arrowverse, he gets with he lives with Iris West and her dad. Um, essentially the girl he's in love with. Um, but essentially, this is a child who's ripped from his family at a very young age. He is a foster kid. Um, so he understands the struggle. He's lived with these struggles. This is how he is. And in doing so, and in the way he kind of cares, he is a down to earth character. It's probably through the forensics work that he sees he can remove himself from the scene and all the stress that the police officers are doing, only to get boil it down to the hard facts. Um, and there are there are jokes upon jokes about how Flash kind of comes in and just. I remember watching this one story, not just one story. I was watching a little short, the Flash YouTube short, where there was a clip from a comic where it was a bunch of villains playing poker. Someone shows up, hey, I just robbed something, blah 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 blah, and they mention this whole like thing about the Flash. It's a mirror of the Batman animated TV show where they I almost got him is the episode where a bunch of villains are sitting at the table and they're talking about how they almost got Batman, right? Imagine a mirror version of that for the Flash. The mirror version of that for the Flash was, and then Flash caught me, right? It was the complete opposite. It was the idea of I tried to do something and then Flash showed up. And they all agree the worst thing Flash ever does isn't that he just captures you. He talks to you like he's a parent. Are you good? Are you okay? You probably shouldn't have been doing that. You want to have a talk? They joke about how the Joker came to Center City, and in doing so, he tried to do something, and the Flash just showed up and kind of just talked to him. The last thing these villains ever want is for Flash to show up and to just start talking to them, right? Because it's like a parent telling you, are you good? Are you doing okay? Essentially, what happened at the bar with Trickster. And well, obviously, the joke is, where'd you rob the stuff? Center City. Uh-oh, Flash is going to be here. And as everyone tries to get up, they turn to the front door and Flash is sitting there. He's like, can we guys have a little talk? And the comic ends. And I'm like, I gotta find that comic and read the entire thing. It's really funny. I just like the idea of it's really funny. I want to see it animated actually. Um, but essentially that's that, right? How does Flash operate? So if we break down his villains, right? If you want to recontextualize the characters, again, to make it feel more cohesive, kind of like how Batman's villains are just always just work. They just work. Remember, this is how it all starts. You kind of want to break it down to, I think, three aspects, right? Mostly the rogues gallery. This is the heart of it all, right? Why is the rogues gallery kind of the heart of it? Because we're really tapping into his social worker side. majority of these villains have some. I believe they all have some bad backstory. Anyone who's like more knowledgeable of the books and of the comics know everyone's backstory, right? Also, the Rogues Gallery kind of have a habit of kind of working with each other once in a while, you know. Those who let's see, top 20. All right, most of them you pretty much know. Captain Cold. Uh, from the TV shows, you probably know the live action shows. You probably know, definitely know Captain Cold. You definitely know Heat Wave from the DCEU. Um, you know Captain Boomerang. Barely, you know Captain Boomerang. Um, from some of these shows, you know Trickster. I just showed you that one, not this version, the older one. Um, and that's pretty much it. You know from most of these guys. Um, but what do they all have in common? And essentially, most of these guys are just kind of low level villains. Uh, but there's multiple times where these guys are just talked to, right? Um, each one has some sad backstory. Uh, can't remember. Let's see. I'm Wikipediaing it. I know. So Captain Cold, abusive father, right? Everyone has that. Anyone who's, I believe, social workers probably have a better handle on this. So writing this would be easier for someone who's knows a social worker, can tap into the mind of a social worker, or just like are more familiar with this world. Um, they see this world over and over again. They see connections of how what could go from one point, how one upbringing could lead down a slippery slope or a way of getting out. Right. And I think that's what all the rogues galleries can be. Uh, like I said, Captain Cole's a good example of an abusive father, an abusive family. A lot of people have gone through that. A lot of social workers have worked through that. Right. Um, and no, I think Heat Wave's whole thing is he was um pyromaniac. Lived in a farm, infatuated fire, and set the house ablaze. And then from there on in, he lived with his uncle. Displacement. Um, I know eventually there's a sister, Golden Glider, sister of Captain Cole. Both have the same life upbringing. Some of these other people are just disabilities. Piper, I believe. Let's see. Piper was born deaf, right? So the struggles of living with a disability. Let's see, what other villains did I put in there? Yeah. Um, Mirror Master and the Trickster, I believe, are just common villains. I didn't get really much of a history of how they were. It's not really much of a deeper dive with them that I know of. But again, all of these characters are kind of just low level, nothing villains. Abracadabra is someone from the future. But again, another villain from the future. grabbing tech and moving on. And that's kind of the one thing I want to bring up as well. A lot of these characters really focus on the tech that they found. A lot of tech in knowledge. Center City is very tech heavy. I don't know if it's as much as Metropolis, but there's a lot of tech heavy stuff going on in here. I mean, Star Labs is part of Center City as well. A lot of things going on as well, and that. Um, but majority of these villains can truly just be a story about how not only is Barry capturing them, not only is Barry like capturing them and stopping them, but play a little detective work. Don't just have the Flash doing the Flash stuff. Have Barry kind of be on the streets randomly, you know? Maybe he's just going back to the crime scene and just looking things over. Uh, maybe he's diving deeper into some of these characters, double checking to see how they are. Um, yeah, and once in a while, have a moment of just conversation, just like the trickster thing. Let the trickster thing happen. There are so many moments, even in the TV show, even in the Arrowverse show, there are moments where he just talks to Cold, Captain Cold. He talks to Captain Cold, and they talk. It is interesting, and it's actually refreshing. Of like the first few seasons, that's why I love the show. You know, Barry approaches it differently. He's not trying to be Batman. Now, the problem is later on, he starts becoming depressed and he starts being all like moody, and then he starts becoming Batman, which is why I didn't like Arrow. Arrow was knockoff Batman. Should have been different. But every show after that started becoming really fun. Um, so that's how I feel. What was Captain Boomerang's thing? Is he just a villain? I believe he was just another villain. An American soldier and woman. Oh, poor. Yeah, he just grew up poor. He was grew up in poverty. So the problems of poverty, the downsides of poverty. That's really his story. That makes sense. Again, something you could easily just pull from real life and then just say, and then they became villains. And then we start diving into how do we fix this? How do they talk? How do they approach? How does Barry approach this, both as Flash and as a social worker? Have fun with it. This could be slightly comedic, or it could be dark comedy, right? Next, we get into the Speed Force. Oh, the Speed Force. Oh, the Speed Force. I said it before. If you go back and look at the Superman one, the worst thing that you could do for a superhero is just make an evil version of yourself. Superman sucks. I love Superman, but if all I could remember is Lex Luthor, who's good, or Superman but evil, Superman but blank, Superman but blank, it gets boring. And sadly, the Speed Force is a go-to to get every single speedster in the world because I can't stop speed. I can't stop super speed. These are all the characters that can stop super speed through overheat to overheat him, to slow him, to um, create less friction, to manipulation. Was it all these different like it's all different other senses other than speed, and these guys are good characters. You know, I know Captain Cold. I know Boomerang, maybe because I know it from like newer stuff. But you know, these guys are easy to remember than most of Superman's villains. Ballard. Um, dare I say, Flash probably has the second best rogues gallery. Interesting. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, I think he does. Um, So what's annoying about the Speed Force? Okay, Reverse Flash, perfect. That makes sense. Reverse Flash is just future, a future fan of Flash who comes back in time and does the whole thing, and sees a person who idolizes the character of the Flash until something happens and he starts despising him. Black Flash, or basically the Death Flash, the a dead version. I can't remember who he is, but it's like a zombie version of Flash in a way. Uh, okay, yeah, it's Death. It's essentially Death with the Speed Force. I think usually pops up when something bad happens. You messed with something too much, and the forces try to fix the problem. Uh, but other characters that usually pop up that kind of make me mad is like, all right, Zoom. Zoom is more of a Wally West character. Uh, but again, I got tapped into the Speed Force. Moving on. There was another person I didn't even know about Turbo. Cobalt. Um, Identical brother of Barry Allen. Ooh, Speed Force. You know, Inertia, Clone. Uh, who else was there? I swear the rival. Um, I swear there was someone else. Yep, Godspeed. They're all just Flash. Let's be real. They're all just Flash. You don't need this much. Oh, Savitar. You don't need this many Flashes. Okay. Reverse Flash is a really good character. Leave it at that. Um, bring in Black Flash. Fine. The undead Death Flash. That's fine. Maybe throw in one more Speedster, but it's got to be a good reason. Everything else is just like later on and really involves Wally West or somewhere else, someone else. None of these other characters really focus on Barry. They're just extras because we can't figure out how to use these characters. Sometimes it's good to just have a small handful of characters and reuse them over and over and over again. You know, that works. It just works. You know. Let me get Green Lantern out of here. Now, funny thing I stumbled on Turtle. Turtle's interesting, right? Never seen him before. Turtle essentially controls the speed, is essentially the speed force, but still force. Imagine reverse. He has the ability to slow down time using the power of force, of the speed force. Um, Never heard of it. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, see, that's how you think about the speed force. Um, Turtle's interesting, right? Um, I think the Golden Age version of Turtle was a Speed Force person. The newer version, I don't know how that works, but I think that's a great character. Someone's never seen before. Have a character who knows how to slow it down. Think about that. Slowing down time. For Barry to be able to fight Turtle, he has to speed up and then eventually just be regular human in a world of time. You know what I'm saying? It's a crazy interesting idea, right? We could play with that. What is his Speed Force? Just Barry fighting opposite versions of himself. Pretty much it. You don't really need too much. Just that's good. Uh, Reverse Flash alone really kind of focuses mostly on Barry's past and future, if you really think about it. Which is all you need. Surprisingly, Abracadabra kind of taps into the future aspects of it, so he kind of works well with the Reverse Flash. So that's fine. Yeah, these two work together. Mostly because these two are from the future. which leaves us with thinkers. There were other things I wanted to put on this, maybe thinkers, debaters, whatever, you know, uh, maybe the concept of theology. I don't know. There's something, not theology, uh, psychology. I don't know. But these are the higher thinkers. Again, thinking about it from a social worker aspect, Barry is more in line with these guys because he's lived that life, right? Um, he's lived the life of a blue collar worker dealing with the loss of family. He's dealing with just, being an average person. He's not a happy farm boy. He's not a rich guy. He's not the daughter of a princess. He's not the son of a king and leader, like king. He's not a king of an underwater tribe. Um, he's not a soldier, right? He is just the average man. And in doing so, he essentially more works with the rogues gallery and understands their plight more than he would a thinker, a scientist. Yes, Barry understands this. You could play with the whole Barry is a very intelligent scientist. Barry is a highly intellectual scientist. Does it say that he has his PhD? I don't think I've seen any of that. As opposed to these guys, right? Who are working towards or have it or something else and working towards all these things, right? They already have this under their belt. They already have the funding. They already are working on these things. Grodd is a highly intelligent, super intelligent gorilla with aspirations of how the world should be, right? The conversation between Barry or the Flash, well, Barry, and Gorilla Grodd should be. I'm missing the words, but this is not a fight of will. Well, this is not a fight of like brawn. This is this is more ethics. I don't know if that's the right word, but see what I'm saying. The thinker. Where is the thinker? You really barely see the thinker alone. Thinker. I think the thinker is the more calculating. Oh my goodness. It's that moment where I'm like, where is the DC? There you go. I like the site. This is really good. This helps me a lot. See, turtle. Where does the thinker come in? I must have missed it. Thinker. Wow, they really don't tell you that show. So genius inventor. Okay. Um, I believe that majority of these characters that are here are either trying to save the world, trying to alter the world, trying to uh, create a new world throughout their vision, their politics, um, their ideology. Is that the word? Um, and that's how they see the world should be, which clashes with what Flash knows, or in a way, there's a cynical side to a social worker. I'm going to put it that way, where as much as you know there is good and there are good paths in the world, you do see so much of everyone falling or failing that you could already see the pieces falling apart. Or you realize that specific ideas that are um, presented by the upper class will ultimately fail everyone underneath. And I think that's how Flash should be when it comes to these thinkers. Everyone here is doing something for science for a better world, or starts that way. Okay, with the exception of Cicada. Um, but everyone, in a way, is trying their hardest to build something. I mean, they're all mostly scientists that kind of started with something, with an idea, with an ideal. Uh, and in part of that, the technology that they were given or were working on corrupted them somehow. And I think that's where the baseline for all these villains in this category should always start with. What was their ideal vision of the future? And how do you take that ideal and twist it? Right? Grodd is easy because he just wants a gorilla city. He wants to conquer and let gorillas thrive. He's more of the minority. He's fighting for his minority. Authoritarian, but minority. Um, the thinker, I think, is just excelling in his mind. I'll be thinking, if I am the master, I can move the chess pieces in a way that's better for everyone, essentially. Um, Killer Frost. The most I got from her is just that she was working on an experiment with cold, which is kind of a sad little thing where you're like, she's not really much, is she? She just came out angry and like wanted revenge. But we could build on that, right? I think that's the problem. You can build on that. Missing this? Come on, Killer Frost must have been in like the golden age. No. Huh. Interesting. That is fascinating. Yeah, majority of these things are just kind of like scientists get put into cryo or something and do those experiments. She is immune with the power of ice and the ability to absorb heat. Um, but take her ideals on what she was working on, add that to her character. Um, Dr. Alchemy was what? See, I don't know these guys. Oh, someone who was studying the Philosopher's Stone. That's what that whole thing story was. He was someone who was like studying the Philosopher's Stone and having the ability to alter. I believe he has the ability to alter matter and stuff. Yep, low atomic assist. So he's chemistry. All right. So his whole thing is kind of like could also just be story of just altering perception. Cicada is interesting because the original story of him was that he was someone from the 19 He was a villain from born in 1890. So he's a character out of time, right? He's seen the world as it was. Uh, was an architect and a tea preacher. Um, and lost it after his wife died. Got struck with a bolt of lightning, and then ended up getting the ability to expand his life beyond. He has the ability to suck in everyone's life's force to extend his. That's what his power is. Um, so from his point of view, he's seen the world from the past. He's seen 100 years ago. He's lived through it, and maybe he's more cynical. He's got a cynical view to the world, which clashes with Flash's more positive outlook on what the world should be. Um, it's not much. I know, like I said, I wanted to be fast, and there's not really much about Flash here. Uh, but what should work with Flash is the heart of it, not really much of the flashy, bombastic nonsense that is the Batman, Superman, all that stuff, right? Flash should be equal parts action and equal parts heart. And once you've established that through all these villains, um, again, the aspect of how do I take care of the people I just arrested? How do you not just arrest them, but how do you get them out of the hole that they're in? Um, again, capturing the villain is only half the problem. There's only half the solution. Reform is the other. Um, the Speed Force is really kind of just looking in, uh, a deeper understanding of the powers you have and the world beyond it, and how the bigger connections, in a way, uh, thinking about this now, how the Speed Force is really more of a bigger connection to everything that is. He is essentially part of a bigger connected web of past, present, future, speed, other, whatever. Um, and then the thinker's aspect is just what does Barry actually believe in? You know, when you pin him against characters that see the world differently than he is. And these are again, don't just it's not just about action. Have a debate, right? There's so many little things I've stumbled on where Barry has been able to take it down so many strong characters just by talking to them. And I think that's surprisingly great. It's a person who doesn't fight with his fists, he fights with his mind, his heart. And I think we need more Flash stories like that. I think DCEU, the movies, failed horribly at that. And I think when we get if they ever get a chance to start over, or if we get a cartoon, if the my was it my the new Superman cartoon, my Adventures with Superman, that's it. If that starts a spin-off of all these other characters, I would love to see that with Barry. I would love to see a Barry story. I mean, I'd love to see a Wonder Woman first, my idea that I already put up, but I'd like to see how you play with that with Barry. It's Superman's already half in there. Just put a speedster in there now. It'll be good. But that said, I'm gonna end it. Um, hopefully this is short. But thanks for hearing me out. And hopefully we'll get a chance. We're probably gonna go with Hal Jordan next. Yeah, I think we're gonna go with Hal Jordan next. Um, so see you next time.